Hi, I'm Merikay Waldvogel, and I'm telling my quilt story at the McKinney Center in Jonesborough, Tennessee. Today is Saturday, May 6th, 2023. And I'm standing in front of an iris quilt. It was a mountain mist, made from a mountain mist pattern by a woman named Donna Garrett, I think is her name. And the quilt is in the collection of the Reese Museum in Johnson City on the campus of East Tennessee State University. It's one of the loveliest renditions I've ever seen of this pattern. It is one of the most popular patterns that Mountain Mist put out. Mountain Mist began putting out, the company, Stearns and Foster Company in Ohio, outside of Cincinnati, had been selling cotton batting and in brown paper wrappered rolls of cotton and that was the batting for the inside of quilts. In 1928, they decided to make it more, the packaging itself, make it more interesting to quilt makers. And a man named Mr. Fritz Hooker, who was working there, came up with the idea of putting quilt patterns, little blocks of quilt patterns on the outside of that batting wrapper. They had an in-house printing facility, so he came up with the patterns and they made it out of screen printing, the wrappers. Well, he put it out about 1928 and realized, somebody pointed out that some of the patterns that he chose were under copyright and that he might need to rework these. So he went looking for a freelance artist, an illustrator of sorts. And his sister had worked with a woman named Margaret Hayes in school. I think it was in New York City. She was at the Art Students League, and her name was Margaret Hayes. And she lived in Jonesborough. Her parents owned a house, a farm, and my understanding was that it was a flower farm. They raised flowers for the florists in the area. Anyway, she worked for him for about a year. They established a relationship where she would send designs for these quilts to him, and he would say yes or no to it. He might change the colors a little bit. And he would send them back, she would work on them, that kind of thing. And often the letters crossed in the mail. Think about it today if it was with computers. But anyway, he at one point said, "You're an artist, why don't you do some of your own designs?" And she designed this one called Iris, and now that I know that her background, her parents were raising, or the family was raising flowers, she must have known irises intimately, and she was a trained artist. So she designs this very modernistic, very simplistic design, but it definitely reads iris. There's no question about it. The colors that she suggested, the two colors, they're in bloom right here all over East Tennessee. And so he accepted this. What happened then was he had a group of women create samples. It was kind of like a marketing thing. He would ask people to vote on their favorites, and if they got enough votes, they would then put it into production. And they then made a full-scale pattern, and that went on the inside of the wrappers. So you could, if you were lucky enough, on the inside of the wrapper, you never knew what was actually inside the wrapper. If you opened it up, it might be another kind of quilt that you didn't really want. So you could order this from the company. Now by doing that, the company, think about it, the company it's a marketing scheme. They're finding out how popular these patterns are. And if more people are asking for this pattern, then they know You know, let's print more, let's get it out there, let's focus on it more. So anyway, I like to talk about them. And this one I was particularly happy to see today because it's a very, very well-made one, and it comes right from her home area. And in fact, Margaret Hayes went on and became an art professor at what became East Tennessee State University, and very well known. And so it's Margaret Hayes designed it. Of course, the woman who made it probably ordered it in the 1940s or 50s. So it's a credit to her, but it's also a credit to Margaret Hayes for designing it. And that's my story.